Peace, love, and prosperity to all of humanity on planet Earth. I am Abdul Smith Bey, discussing. We will continue to read for the United Nations Charter. Um, I think we're on the Security Council, but first, of course, we have to look at other information, right, to bring clarity to the movement, the Moroccan statehood movement, right, which is based in international law and Moroccan law. The two additional principles that's outlined in the new empire flag as the two stripes. If you recall, the top stripe is international law. The bottom stripe is represents Moroccan law. And obviously the 5 points still represent the 5 points of light, love, truth, peace, freedom, of justice. So therefore, it's what we call a Circle 7 flag. Islam, and it's definitely distinguished from the Kingdom of Morocco's flag. Keeping in mind and remembering that the Kingdom of Morocco is a provincial government under the authority of the empire, just like the rest of our Moroccan states, right? So the video is out. We've uploaded it while we changed the empire flag. So anyone who has any questions, you may refer to that video, or I believe AMPAG study session 121 also breaks it down, either 121 or 122. I believe it's 121. However, watch them both. In fact, watch all of them. It's 123 videos, right? We need to change our vernacular. We have to change our literature so that the people will may eventually change, right? We got to go away from writs and affidavits and enforce their constitution and USC code 18, whatever else. We have to switch over now and increase our degrees to understanding terms such as uti possidetis juris, just cogents, right? What makes you have full powers that's found in good and due form? These are the things that we need to start gaining knowledge and understanding about, because these are the principles that equates to liberation, right? Decolonization. Remembering that we are the last to that party, right? But I guess the Moors really like to make an entrance when they come in. We're always late to everything, right? We try to step in all fly and smooth so that everybody got their eyes on you. Well, guess what? That's exactly what's going on now, because we are late to the party. There's been 80 other territories that has decolonized, 17 others that are in the queue and waiting to decolonize. And here we are, finally coming to the table. The difference with us and everyone else, however, is we have treaties, powerful treaties at that, such as the Act of Algeciras, who's given us back full control of the empire. It is the decolonization document of all decolonization documents, right? It supersedes the charter. That's highlighted in Article 123 of the Act of Algeciras. Let's go to it. Where are we? Let's go to Article 123. Where are we? Here we are. The Act of Algeciras of 1906. Go to the bottom. Straight to Article 123. And it says, on Article 123, and last, all treaties, conventions, and arrangements of the signatory powers with the Morocco remain in force. It is understood, however, that in case of conflict between their provisions and those of the present act, the stipulations of the latter shall prevail. So that means that wherever there's conflict in the provisions of the Act of Algeciras, or between the Act of Algeciras and the United Nations Charter itself, guess which one prevails? The Act of Algeciras. the United Nations Charter and the League of Nations Covenant find their root in the Act of Algeciras in and of itself. Right? It's the Act of Algeciras is the document that gave birth to the League of Nations and the United Nations. You may also include the Treaty of Fez of 1912. That's why there's such a book called 10 Years of Secret Diplomacy. There was a 10-year period in the early 1900s in which there was a lot of pen maneuvering, if you will, a lot of political maneuvers, chess moves that was taking place behind the scenes on an international level that was kept as a secret to all the U.S. citizens, whether white or Negro. And it had everything to do with the Negro, because the Negro is Moroccan. But his proper status as a subjugated Moor would be a Moroccan subject or a Moorish subject, ipso jure Moorish subject. So, honors to the good brother J. Bay for bringing us the clean glass of water, right? Alkaline water, that is. Taking us away from the mishmash, unintelligible toilet bowl that the old Moorish American paradigm is and was, because it is being eclipsed by the truth. Because the truth is art and it shall never pass away. So, here we're talking about the United Nations. And so, the United Nations, apparently, according to certain people out in the world, was established by the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. And it's an evil organization. However, look at their motto. What does that say? Peace, dignity. All right, why can I highlight it? Oh, I got it. Oh, it's a link. Peace, dignity, and equality on a healthy planet. We're seeking a healthy planet. From the Central African Republic to South Sudan, and from Syria and Yemen to Afghanistan and beyond, warring parties have indiscriminately or deliberately attacked schools, hospitals, and essential water infrastructure, used children as human shields, recruited children into armed groups and state forces, killed civilians with chemical weapons, raped and sexually exploited women and children. The Geneva Convention of 1949 are among the most important treaties enshrining the principle that wars have limits. Anyone that's ever been in the military know about the Geneva Convention of 1949. It was an important treaty that all the soldiers, airmen, seamen, Marines, etc., we would highly be briefed about, right? At the heart of international humanitarian law, they bring protection to persons not or no longer participating in hostilities. So this is the spirit of the United Nations, right? Is to establish peace and security on planet Earth. Well, for what I recall, peace is one of our 5 principles, right? Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Therefore, the Charter carries the spirit of our 5 principles of light, which is love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Right? So that tells me that the United Nations Charter was written and coded for our liberation, Moors, for us to come back into power, for us to make manifest the famous Bible quote, which is, "The meek shall inherit the earth." Can I get a volunteer reader, please? Kendon, are you on, good brother? And if not Kendon, anyone else can assist me with reading here. International Law and Justice.
Yeah, I'll read.
Oh, Wazir Akil. How you doing, my good brother?
I'm doing good, man.
Glad to hear that, my good brother. President of the Trusteeship Council as well, by the way. You may begin.
All right, international law and justice. Among the greatest achievements of the United Nations is the development of a body of international law, which is central to promoting economic and social development, as well as to advancing international peace and security. The international law is enshrined in conventions, treaties, and standards. Many of the treaties brought about the United Nations form the basis of the law that governs relations among nations. While the work of the UN in this area does not always receive attention, it has a daily impact on the lives of people everywhere. The Charter of the United Nations, specifically, calls on the organization to help in the settlement of international disputes by peaceful means, including arbitration and judicial settlement, Article 33, and to encourage the progressive development of international law and its codification, Article 13.
All right, hold that right there. Among the greatest achievements of the United Nations in the development of a body of international law, which is central to promoting economic and social development, as well as to advancing international what? Peace and security. The international law is enshrined in conventions, treaties, and standards. You see, and that's exactly what we stand on, based on accessions. We have acceded to various conventions and treaties and resolutions, etc., which they're all standards, right? And that's the process that you must undertake in order to have the power and the authority to enforce the language contained in these documents upon other signatory powers. This is what opens us up for success in this pen battle between us and the United States. We have a contentious dispute, but that dispute can only be settled on an international level because international law, or should I say, let me rephrase this, states are subjects of international law. So we fall under the authority of international law. That's the highest law on planet Earth, right? And through the United Nations, one of its principal organs, the International Court of Justice, we also had to accede and recognize their statutes so that we can also utilize that court to assist in settling the dispute that we have with the United States. You see these concepts, Morris? These are things that we haven't been taught over a period of 100 years, damn near a century. We have stayed away from this, right? It has become the boogeyman, right? So when you got Moors seeking to approach the United Nations, right, and just post up at the front door until they let them in, and we're not leaving until you let us in, relations amongst nations. That's not the competent way to petition the United Nations, not by standing out in front of the door, flying a flag that doesn't represent or protect you, that being the Kingdom of Morocco flag. See, that's part of the problem. They really don't understand what we're doing because they don't understand international law. And it's available for free. We're reading international law right now. I didn't have to pay for that. I just pulled it up on the United Nations website. So I'm not getting paid. I didn't have to pay to get this information, and we're not going to turn around and charge you for it either, are we? Nope. Knowledge is free at the WRC, right? While the work of the UN is in this area does not always receive attention, it has a daily impact on the lives of people everywhere. The Charter of the United Nations specifically calls on the organization to help in the settlement of international disputes by peaceful means, including arbitration and judicial settlement, which is Article 33, and to encourage the progressive development of international law and its codification, which is Article 13. So what do we have? What we got going on with the United States? Settlement of international dispute by peaceful means, including arbitration and judicial settlement. So that means the Moors should have been studying what? Article 33 of the United Nations Charter to gain an understanding on how to deal with the United States, the competent way, that is. But we were taken down the wrong path of internal US laws, right, with ideas such as enforce their constitution, which is absolutely nonsensical. It's asinine at the very least. Okay, brother, go ahead. Over the years.
Okay. Over the years, more than 500 multilateral treaties have been deposited with the UN Secretary General. Many other treaties are deposited with governments or other entities. The treaties cover a broad range of subject matters, such as human rights, disarmament, and protection of the environment. General Assembly as a forum of adopting multilateral treaties. The General Assembly is composed of representatives from each UN member state and is the main deliberative body on matters relating to international law. Many multilateral treaties are in fact adopted by the General Assembly and subsequently open for signature and ratification. The Legal Six Committee assists the work of the General Assembly by providing advice on substantive legal matters. The committee is also made up of representatives from all UN member states.
All right, hold that right there, please. So the General Assembly is composed of representatives from each UN member state. So whenever you look like a UN picture or something, you see that huge round table. That's all the heads of state from all the countries, well, at least 193 member states, 193 countries around planet Earth, right? And that body is what's called the General Assembly, right? And it deliberates. Is the main deliberative body on matters relating to international law. So they're the ones who draft these different resolutions, conventions, and things of that nature, right? It's a bunch of heads of states coming together for the common good, the peace and security of planet Earth, right? In like manner, mirror imaging, learning from the Europeans. That's essentially what we have done with the Wazir Regional Council. It's a roundtable of all the heads of state of all the Moroccan states, right? And we deliberate on matters dealing with international law and our domestic laws, to include settling disputes amongst our Moroccan states if ever one came to be. I'm going to leave the Europeans here long enough to teach you how to run government. Well, we finally took Noble Drew Ali up on that advice, because we haven't done so until now. Right? Go ahead, brother. You may continue.
Okay. The General Assembly has adopted several multilateral treaties throughout its history, including Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, 1948, International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, 1965, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, 1966, International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, 1966, Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, 1979, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, 1982, Convention on the Rights of the Child, 1989, Comprehensive
Nuclear.
I got a call coming in, Scott. Excuse me. Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, 1996. International Convention for the Suppression of the Financing of Terrorism, 1999. International Convention for the Suppression of Acts of Nuclear Terrorism, 2005. Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, 2006. United Nations Convention on Contracts for the International Carriage of Goods wholly or partly by sea, 2008. Optional Protocol to the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, 2008.
All right, hold right there, brother. So let's scroll up and let's examine this list. I got a question for the floor. Which one of these conventions, treaties, arrangements, i.e. contracts, can be made enforceable against the United States and potentially get a win? Anyone can answer that question. How many of these contracts is the United States violating?
Every last one of them.
All of them.
That's the question. That's the answer. That's the answer I was looking for. All of them. Okay, so now I have a question for the floor, keeping in mind that I already gave you the answer about 5 minutes ago. How can we, or any other peoples on planet Earth, right, but specifically us, dealing with the United States, how can we enforce these contracts against the United States?
Have a state constitution.
Wrong. You may continue. That's not the end of the answer.
I see, Jay. You got to accede to the treaties.
Thank you. How, in order for you to accede to the treaties, though, what must you first do?
Create a state.
That's right.
Constitution, flag, seal, etc.
And who is that speaking?
Tabe.
Islam, good brother, from South Carolina, Chief Judge. That's right. So you need to first establish your state, and then you must accede to those treaties, meaning become parties to those treaties, those contracts, and then you can enforce it against the United States. And the way you enforce it, Ty Bay, how do you enforce it against the United States?
Through consular court.
Fair enough. And then what happens if they don't adhere to the consular court order?
We petition the WRC to get involved.
Okay.
Close.
Preferably petition the WRC first. But we'll go back to that. But let's continue. Right? So then they tell the WRC to kick rocks. What's next?
I see, Jay.
That's right. You petition the United Nations. So, but you would petition the WRC first before bringing in consular court. Why is that? Anyone? Except Jay, if he's on. Why would you petition the WRC first before bringing in consular court? Crickets.
Consular court deal with state to state.
Say it again.
Consular court deal with state to state.
No. Actually, consular court deals with the United States. This is the reason why. Right? So you got two words there, arbitration and judicial settlement. Which one does consular court represent?
Judicial settlement.
Settlement.
Judicial. So therefore, which one does the WRC represent?
Arbitration.
There you go. That's the reason why the WRC comes in first, because the WRC is not a court. So we have the due process of settling a dispute with another state is to first go through arbitration, mediation, and then judicial settlement. Right? You want to resolve it peacefully by way of negotiations. If that doesn't prevail, then you got to go to, it has to get settled. You can't just allow a problem or a dispute to fester, right? So it must be settled, and the final step to settlement is judicial settlement, bringing in the courts. So for us, we bring in consular court because that's what the treaties say, right? Any disputes between us and the United States, consular court must get involved, which is, again, why Dred Scott was found as plaintiff in error, because he was a Moorish subject who was supposed to petition consular court. Instead, he petitioned the United States Supreme Court. Wrong venue, but they didn't tell him that, right? So as we go through these varying stages of forcing decolonization, the colonists will give pushback, obviously, right? You don't expect for them to lay down. You don't expect for them to lay down their king. So that pushback is telling the WRC, okay, kick rocks. We ain't trying to hear what you got to say. That pushback is also telling consular court, kick rocks. We ain't trying to hear what you're trying to say. Okay, no worries. That's when we now bring in the United Nations and the ICJ. And so since we've already acceded to these contracts, now we can enforce the principles, the provisions against them at the International Court of Justice. I just highlighted our process. I just highlighted something that the Moors have no clue about. Why is that? Because we haven't been studying international law. Instead, we've been studying United States municipal laws. Right? We had been like frogs in a particular pond, limited to that particular pond, not knowing that there's a bigger sea out there. That bigger sea is international law. And we should have been exploring international law, because Moroccans are international people. Why are we limiting ourselves to their internal municipal laws? No, wrong answer, wrong idea. That's why you see we haven't advanced anywhere past the skirmish line in the past 100 years. Well, as I said earlier, this is a new era in time now. And all the old Moors will be placed in the back. And us that got our eyes wide open, seeing and knowing, will march the people to decolonization through the empire. Meaning we must first establish the empire, or re-establish the empire. The reemergence of the infamous Moroccan Empire. Everybody knows about it. Anyone who needs to know about it, at least. All the international jurists know about it. Every single person that works at the United Nations that matter know about it. All 193 member states know about it. We're not doing anything that they're not already aware of. We're the ones who didn't know nothing about it. Which is why we have been acquiescing. We've been dying by the day for a lack of knowledge, a lack of knowledge of self, and a lack of knowledge of the proper principles that would bring forth our liberation. What we've been doing instead is begging them for liberation by way of legislation. That's how we ended up with what? Affirmative action. Jesse Messi Jackson, civil rights, Martin Luther King. That's their legislation that they wrote for us. And it turned out that we didn't even like either one of them, after all. But why would they write it to your advantage? Especially if they already know that you got all the power. You write your own legislation. How you like those apples? Okay, no worries. We got that. We'll take it from here. And y'all need to take the back seat, colonists. We're going to start back again, navigating this ship that we call the empire. This is the mothership. This is Nibiru that Elijah Muhammad and all these people have been talking about, Malachi York. The empire is the ship. Stop looking to the skies expecting aliens to pop up to save you. You save yourself by building your own Noah's Ark. That's the empire and your several states. Continue, brother. In many areas,
In many areas, the legal work of the United Nations has been pioneering, addressing problems as they take on international dimension. The UN has been at the forefront of efforts to provide a legal framework in such areas as protecting the environment, regulating migrant labor, curbing drug trafficking, and combating terrorism. This work continues today as international law assumes a more central role across a wider spectrum of issues, including human rights law and international humanitarian law. Read more about oceans and the law of the sea. It goes to read development and codification of international law, International Law Commission. The International Law Commission was established by the General Assembly in 1947 to promote the progressive development of international law and its codification. The commission is composed of 34 members who collectively represents the world's principal legal systems and serve as experts in their individual capacity, not as representatives of their governments. They address issues relevant to the regulation They address issues relevant to the regulation of relations among states and frequently consult with the International Committee of the Red Cross and the International Court of Justice and the UN specialized agencies, depending on the subject. Often, the Commission also prepares drafts on aspects of international law. Some topics are chosen by the Commission, others are referred to it by the General Assembly. When the Commission completes work on a topic, the General Assembly sometimes convenes an international conference of plenipotentiaries to incorporate the draft into a convention. The convention is then open to states to become parties, meaning that such countries formally agree to be bound by its provisions. Some of these conventions form the very foundation of the law governing relations among states. Examples include.
Before you read those examples, this is what we're trying to get people to understand, the Moors to understand. Some of these conventions really, well, I guess some, we'll see what they are, because there are some that may be self-executing. However, 90% of these treaties, conventions, etc., right, deals with what's that? Relations amongst states. not as an individual, and certainly not a subjugated individual. All right, Moorish Americans, Black people, Negroes, African Americans cannot enforce any of these contracts. You have to come as a state. That's just the bottom line. Okay, brother, you may continue with the examples.
All right. So it continues to say the Convention on the Non-Navigational Uses of International Watercourses, adopted by the General Assembly in 1997. Convention on the Law of Treaties between States and International Organizations, or between international organizations, adopted at a conference in Vienna in 1986. Convention on the Succession of States in respect of state property, archives, and debts, adopted at a conference in Vienna in 1983. Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of Crimes against Internationally Protected Persons, including diplomatic agents. I couldn't see the bottom part. Adopted by the General Assembly in 1973.
All right, hold that right there. Let's go back up. Okay. It's interesting that this one here is the very first example that they highlighted on the previous section. Convention on the Convention, somebody need to mute themselves, please. Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. That's the most important one for us. Why is that? Because they have denationalized us. That's genocide, right? But in your subjugated status, you can't do anything about it on an international level. You must join the international community in order to have the authority to shed light on the atrocities by the United States, committed by the United States. You can't shine that light as a Black man. Even though we've had certain leader guys that had the platform to shed the light. Problem still remains, however, that we didn't have state power. As such, being subjugated as citizens of the United States, no other country, including the United Nations, could have come to our aid or rescue anyway. Because according to international law, a state cannot get involved in the international the internal affairs of another state. So Nigeria couldn't have came to the United States and told whatever president to fall back on the atrocities. He has no authority, no jurisdiction, you see? He has no jurisdiction. So this is one of the treaties that we can definitely enforce against the United States, right? Now, going back to the examples, it's important for Moors who are establishing their state to get very well acquainted and familiar with Convention on the Law of Treaties between states and international organization, or between international organizations, adopted at a conference in Vienna in 1986. For short, it's commonly known as the Convention on the Law of Treaties between states of 1986, right? Also, a Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of Crimes against Internationally Protected Persons, including diplomatic agents, adopted by the General Assembly in 1973. So who's the General Assembly? Again, it's all the 193 member states. They have adopted this particular convention, right? And we have acceded to this particular convention because it's given us, it's protecting our protections as diplomatic agents, as diplomats of our state, right? So they don't have the right or authority to fine us, right? Incarcerate us, detain us, can even search our briefcases and things. According to the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, I think it's of 1961 and 1963, deals with the diplomatic bag, but that's another story. We'll get to that at some point. We've done a class on that already anyway, on what a diplomatic bag tag is. This is a little bit advanced though, but I just wanted to point out some of these contracts set forth by the United Nations that we can utilize to our advantage, right? To bring justice again, bring the United States to justice. See, we want justice, right? No justice, no peace. We want justice. Well, you can't gain justice if you don't have a judicial branch. It doesn't even make sense. Your judicial branch, the judicial branch of your government, upholds your justice. So you can't ask the enemy for justice. It doesn't make sense. You have to establish your states and enforce your own justice through your judicial branch, through your justices, through your judges. See how that works? You know, when you start studying these things, it actually becomes common sense to you. It's like, oh man, this is common sense. But you don't know what you don't know. So you have to come to the know. And then in hindsight, you'll say, oh, wow, this is actually, easier than I thought. It's actually just all common sense. We just haven't been eruditing ourselves on this subject matter, on this body of law, which is called international law, if you will. Continue, brother. In international humanitarian law.
International humanitarian law encompasses the principles and rules that regulate the means and methods of warfare, as well as the humanitarian protection of civilian populations, sick and wounded combatants, and prisoners of war. Major instruments include the 1949 Geneva Convention for the Protection of War Victims, and 2 additional protocols concluded in 1977 under the auspices of the International Committee of the Red Cross. The United Nations has taken a leading role in the efforts to advance international humanitarian law. The Security Council has become increasingly involved in protecting civilians in armed conflict, promoting human rights, and protecting children in wars. Judicial settlement of disputes, International Court of Justice.
All right, man, pay attention to this. Go ahead.
The primary United Nations organ for the settlement of disputes in the International Court of Justice is the International Court of Justice, also known as the World Court. It was founded in 1946. Since its founding, the court has considered over 170 cases, issued numerous judgments, and issued advisory opinions in response to requests by the United Nations organizations. Most cases have been dealt with by the full court, but since 1981, 6 cases have been referred to special chambers at the request of the parties. In its judgments, the court has addressed international disputes involving economic rights, rights of passage, the non-use of force, non-interference in the internal affairs of states, diplomatic relations, hostage taking, the right of asylum and nationality.
Hold that right.
Uh-huh.
Right. So what did I just say about Nigeria not being able to come over to the United States and hold the United States president accountable?
Non-interference in the internal affairs of states.
Internal affairs of states. So when the Moors say, well, why nobody on planet Earth will come to help us? Why will nobody help us? Why will the United Nations not do nothing to help us? That's why. Non-interference in the internal affairs of states. So anyone who's ever had that question in the audience or in YouTube land, that's the answer to your question, Morris. So if that's the case, then what's left up? What's the only thing else left for the Moors to do if they're trying to seek justice from their problems against that they're dealing with the oppressor, the colonists, the white man, whatever you want to call it. Establish your states. We need governments. Without our governments, all we're going to do is continue delaying our own justice because we are delaying our own justice while remaining subjugated under the criminal and civil jurisdiction of the American jurisdiction. All right, brother, continue. States. Start there.
States bring such disputes before the court in search of an impartial solution to their differences based on law. By achieving peaceful settlement on such questions as land frontiers, maritime boundaries, and territorial sovereignty, the court has often helped to prevent the escalation of disputes.
All right, hold right there. So, real quick, let me go back here to hostage taking. If the United States law enforcement officials take me to jail, that would be taking me hostage. That's actually kidnapping. Period. Why? Because I'm a diplomat of a state, which means I'm foreign to your jurisdiction. I'm not your subject. I'm not your citizen. If the United States law enforcement agents take any of their citizens to jail for breaking their laws, it's not kidnapping. Moorish American, you've never been kidnapped. You've been arrested. When I was a Moorish American, I thought I was kidnapped. Coming to find out, oh man, I was arrested. The kidnapping happens when it's of a de jure, not even the fact, because we weren't even the fact, we just was all wrong, right? Kidnapping only takes when you are of a separate jurisdiction for real, especially as a diplomat. That's hostage taking or kidnapping. Now we go down here, it says, by achieving peaceful settlement on such questions as land frontiers, right? Settling disputes dealing with land frontiers. What is that pointing to, Morris? That's a question for the floor. Somebody knows the answer to this one. Land frontiers. I'll give you. What was that?
Borderline.
Borderlines. Okay. Now give me the real answer.
Jurisdiction.
Okay. It is jurisdiction.
Trust territory.
Nope. Land frontiers. Like a border dispute.
Islam, is it longitude, latitude, which would be called uti possidatus?
Thank you, Sutra. For uti possidatus jurisdiction. So, if one group of incompetent Moors seek to take over New Jersey, Delaware, and Pennsylvania on one constitution, right? You just violated uti possidatus juris, and what's going to happen? And why is it that? Why is that a problem? Because competent Moors. Oh, go ahead. Somebody was going to answer that. Go ahead.
you're not giving the Moors in that jurisdiction the right to make a claim.
Who answered that?
El Luis de la Vega Marcano Bay.
Islam, brother. You're absolutely correct. El Luz, the light, right? Again, for the record, on publicly speaking, thank you for sharing those snips on the of the AMPAG study sessions. Everyone go subscribe and share Moorish Entertainment TV on YouTube. Moorish Entertainment TV on YouTube.
Thank you,
brother. Your efforts, good brother, in spreading the word. And obviously you've been studying. Because yes, that's the problem. Right? So a group of Moors in Pennsylvania may say, well, we want to take over this territory, which is Pennsylvania. And they enact a constitution for that area. Now we have a dispute between Unami Buffalo Nation and the Moors of Pennsylvania. And guess who's going to win that battle? The Moors in Pennsylvania, because they are adhering to the principles of uti possidetis juris. So that dispute would be known as a land frontier, well, it is land frontier, but it would be known as a border dispute, frontier dispute. And as in the case with Burkina Faso and Mali, right? And that's the problem with taking over 3, 4, 5 trust territories all at one time under one constitution. You're going against the principles of uti possidetis juris, which is there's no derogation to that rule. There's no way around it. So anyone who's seeking to establish a state, don't even think about claiming 3, 4, 5 different trust territories at one time. Not if you think you're gonna work with the WRC. We have to do things to the strict sense of the law. We uphold standards at the WRC. We cannot make foolish moves in this chess match. We can't blunder moves. You only get one shot. And we're gonna dominate this. We're gonna dominate this chess game. In fact, we're already dominating it. It's just a matter of patience to allow it to be made manifest. Go ahead, Brother Hakeem.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, excuse the cars driving by, but just gonna say for those who have or those intending to do so, be prepared to be held accountable by the Moors who are gonna come up in their own territory.
That's right. Absolutely. And it doesn't even end there. Maritime boundaries, right? Same thing. Islands and stuff like that. Or how far your jurisdiction goes into the sea. And territorial sovereignty. Right? We have to consider those aspects of human rights, because these are human rights issues and violations, right? We have to be mindful of those things when we're operating on the international level, in the international arena, the highest level known on planet Earth. And that's what these calls and these classes are all about. This is what the AMPAG study session is all about, is to get the Moors erudite in these matters. So when they start to establish their state governments, they'll have an understanding on what they need to do in order to be in conformity with international law, so that it doesn't come back and bite you in the butt at some point later on when the United States notice something and they use that as a right as a loophole to deny your claim. How do you make a proper claim? You know how the Moors say, well, we got to make a proper claim to our estate. Well, how do you do that? Not with a trust, with a state. You make a proper claim through your state government, not through an organization, not through a website, not through an institution, not through an association, not through a fraternity, not through a temple or church or mosque. It's through your state. Period. Go ahead, brother. International criminal justice.
International criminal justice. The international community had long aspired to create a permanent international court to try the most serious international crimes. And in the 20th century, it reached consensus on definitions of genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes.
So with that alone, we got two out of three. I would say three out of three, but let's just say 2 out of 3 against the United States, right? We got them on genocide, and we got them on crimes against humanity. And they know it. We can't lose, Moors. Our job is to remain steadfast and keep pounding our feet on the streets as we march to decolonization. Islam, go ahead, brother. Tribunals.
Okay, tribunals. After the Second World War, the Nuremberg and Tokyo trials addressed war crimes, crimes against peace, and crimes against humanity committed during the Second World War. The ad hoc tribunals and the UN-assisted tribunals have continued to contribute to combating impunity and promoting accountability for the most serious crimes. In the 1990s, at the end of the Cold War, the International Criminal Tribunals for the former Yugoslavia, which is the ICTY, and for Rwanda, ICTR, were established to try crimes committed within a specific time frame and during a specific conflict. This implies as well to 3 courts established by the states concerned, but with substantial UN support. The Special Court for the Special Court for Sierra Leone, 2002. The Extraordinary Chambers in the Courts of Cambodia, 2006, and the Special Tribunal for Lebanon, 2007, sometimes referred to as hybrid courts. Can you scroll down a little bit? Okay. They're the non-permanent institutions which will cease to exist once all of their cases have been heard.
Islam. So that's what makes it ad hoc. These are temporary courts, which would cease, what does it say at the end? Which will cease to exist once all their cases have been heard. Right? So that's the international, the ICJ, International Court of Justice, right? That's the first stop. So, well, not the first stop, the final stop. So let's say, even at that level, the United States tells the ICJ to kick rocks. Well, then this is the final stop. You may go ahead, brother. The International Criminal Court, and pay attention to this one.
International Criminal Court. The idea of a permanent international court to prosecute crimes against humanity was first considered at the United Nations in the context of the adoption of the Genocide Convention of 1948. For many years, differences of opinions forestalled further developments. In 1992, the General Assembly directed the International Law Commission to prepare a draft statute for such a court. The massacres in Cambodia, the former Yugoslavia, and Rwanda made the need for it even more urgent. The International Criminal Court, or ICC, has jurisdiction to prosecute individuals who commit genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. It will also have jurisdiction over the crime of aggression when an agreement is reached on the definition of such crime. The ICC is legally and functionally independent from the United Nations and is not part of the UN system.
All right, hold that right there. So look at what it said at the beginning, that the ICC has jurisdiction to prosecute individuals, not states, individuals who commit genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. What's an example of that? Okay. like I said earlier, if the United States tell the ICJ kick rocks, then it escalates to the International Criminal Court, in which an individual will be tried in his private and personal capacity. Who would that be? That question is for the floor.
Hey, Islam, everyone. This is the IG from the WRC. It would be Russia versus Ukraine.
Oh, no. I think you misheard the question, IG. And appreciate your presence. What I was saying is, if we take the United States to the International Criminal Court, and understanding that the International Criminal Court prosecutes individuals who commit the crime, such as genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity. So if we take the United States to the ICC, and the ICC adjudicates against individuals, who will be the individual that will be responsible?
Well, currently you're referring to the president of the United States, but at the end of the day, I was referring to the president of Russia when he had a war against Ukraine. So my apologies.
Okay. So I guess he was answering it in a different way. Right. Okay, fair enough. The president, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, whoever the president is at the time. Right?
Islam. You could technically tack on as many individuals as possible, right? As long as it's not a state body.
Start over. I was getting a call when you started speaking, brother.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, I was asking, you can essentially tack on as many individuals as possible in one case, correct?
That's
as long
correct.
as it's not a state body.
Exactly. So we can put the vice president, what do you call them? They call them
Secretary of Defense.
State Secretary of Defense, right? You know what I mean? The Secretary of State, the Attorney General, the principals.
Pretty much all of them. Bush,
All
Cheney, everybody.
Right. All the principals of the United States. Starting with the head of state. Period. And now we hold them accountable in their personal capacity. And that's the final step after the ICJ. Right. And so, but we highly doubt that it will go that far. However, we're prepared to go those rounds. Oh, we're prepared to go those rounds. Islam, we've studied that far ahead. It's kind of like playing chess. You got to see your moves ahead. What's your next move? What's your next move? What's your next move after this move? And what will your opponent potentially do? So, should in case, we're training for the United States to take us that far, to be that belligerent. And we're going to be that steadfast. Just as belligerent as you want to be, we're going to be just as steadfast. Right? The same force you push back with is the same force we're going to push right back with, if not more. You're going to give up the seat of the empire. Period. Go ahead, brother. You may continue.
All right. I'll read for a little bit while longer than my daughter's going to show up. So I'll read one more time and then I yield the floor to it.
All right.
The cooperation between the UN and the ICC is governed by a negotiated relationship agreement. The Security Council can initiate proceedings before the ICC and can refer to the ICC situations that would not otherwise fall under the court's jurisdiction. The court has 18 judges elected by the state's parties for the term limited to 9 years, except that a judge shall remain in office to complete any trial or appeal which has already begun. No two judges can be from the same country. Resources, international justice.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Go ahead and get back. Something, man. That brother Akil, he keep his seeds with him. He don't play about his churn. Honor to you for that, good brother. So yes, that's the that's international law in a nutshell. To conclude, I'm sorry for scrolling so fast, to include, right, uh, the organs of the International Court of Justice, which is something that we need to be very familiar with. So you don't study the Supreme Court of the United States. Wrong concept. You study the International Court of Justice. That's your final destination. I mean, come on, you can't hold the United States accountable in their own courts. You can't take the United States of America or the United States to court and utilize their federal court, their Supreme Court. Made no sense. In order to hold them accountable, you need a third party referee. That would be the United Nations and the ICJ and the ICC, finally, if they don't adhere to the ruling of the International Court of Justice. All right. So now let's take a look at the Security Council. This is the president of the current president as of November 2023, Zhang Jun, PR of China. I suppose that's not president because it's actually so PR of China and president of the Security Council for November 2023. Can I get a reader? This is a short read.
I got you.
All right, brother, appreciate it.
Peace and security. The Security Council has primary responsibility. Oh, wow. Screen just dropped.
Do I need to do something on my end?
Gotta blow it up on my phone.
Do I need to do something on my end?
I'll pick it up from here if you don't mind. The Security Council has primary responsibility for the maintenance and international peace and security. It has 15 members, and each member has one vote. Under the Charter of the United Nations, all members, states, and are obligated to comply with the Council decisions. The Security Council takes the lead in determining the existence of the threat to the peace or act of aggression. It calls upon the parties to dispute, to settle it by peaceful means, and recommends methods of adjustment or terms of settlement. In some cases, the Security Council can resort to imposing sanctions or even authorize the use of force to maintain or restore international peace and security.
So the Security Council president, right, represented by China, will continue. Where am I at? Here we go. You can read that. The use of mandatory sanctions.
Can you blow it up just a little bit?
Oh,
on your end, just kind of make it wider.
how's that?
Yeah, it's fine. Just scroll back down. I got you.
Yeah. Well, it's not going to work because you're not going to be able to see all the words. Let me see something.
I got it.
Right there. That's as big as it's going to get.
That's fine. Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's fine.
Committees and working groups are comprised of the 15 members of the council, while standing committees are chaired by the president of the council, rotating on a monthly basis. Other committees or working groups are chaired or co-chaired by designated members of the council, who are announced on the annual basis by the note of the president of the Security Council.
Okay, so this is the repertoire. Jay Bay made a class about the repertoire. Let's see what the repertoire is. Which before you read, don't ask me. I haven't studied it deep enough. So I'm gonna do a study on that. I'm gonna do a little bit of research on that, and I'll get back to you all on the repertoire. Go ahead, brother.
The repertoire of the practice of the Security Council provides comprehensive coverage of the Security Council's interpretation and application of the United Nations Charter and its own provisional rules of procedures. The material presented in the repertoire is exclusively based on official documents of the Security Council.
I appreciate that, IG. If the good brother Jay is on, I'm not sure if you're on, good brother. If you are, would you mind unmuting yourself and explaining briefly, real quick, the repertoire?
Doesn't appear that Brother Jay's here.
Okay, no worries. But we'll move on to the next slide or the next point of interest. He probably is, but he don't want to talk. I'm not looking at the screen, so I'm not sure if he's on or not, but it's okay. All right, go ahead, brother. You can read this here now about the Security Council. Now we're going to get into the identifying who are the members of the Security Council. Go ahead, bro.
The United Nations Security Council, USC, is one of 6 principal organs of the United Nations, UN, and is charged with ensuring international peace and security, recommending the admission of new UN members to the General Assembly, and approving any changes to the UN Charter. Its powers as outlined in the United Nations Charter include establishing peacekeeping operations, enacting international sanctions, and authorizing military actions. The UNSC is the only UN body with the authority to issue binding resolutions on member states. Like the UNS as a whole, the Security Council was created after World War II. It addresses the failings of the League of Nations in maintaining world peace. It held the first session on 17 January 1946, but was largely paralyzed in the following decades by the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union and their allies. Nevertheless, it authorized military interventions in the Korean War and the Congo crisis and peacekeeping missions in Cyprus, West New Guinea, and the Sinai Peninsula. With the collapse of the Soviet Union, UN peacekeeping efforts increased dramatically in scale, with the Security Council authorizing major military and peacekeeping missions in Kuwait, Namibia, Cambodia, Bosnia, and Herzegovina, thank you, Somalia, Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Security Council consists of 15 members, which 5 are permanent: China, France, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States. These were the great powers that were the victors of World War II, or their successor states. Permanent members can veto block any substantiated Security Council resolution, including those on the admission of new member states to the United Nations or nominees for the office of the Secretary General. The veto right does not carry over to any General Assembly or emergency special sessions of the General Assembly. Citation needed. Matters or votes.
All right there. So we see who the 5 permanent members are, right? China, France, Russia, United Kingdom, and the United States. Okay. Where's the United States?
In Morocco.
Okay, right. Okay. Sounds good. All right, so if the United States is in Morocco, then ultimately, upon decolonization, what would happen with Morocco and the present Security Council as it relates to the United States? Say it again. You're kind of muffled.
We'll have the seat of where the United States is ultimately.
Is he talking or is he off mute? What was the problem there?
Sounded like he was talking, but don't seem so now.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
No. Yeah, we can hear you now. Say that again. Are you talking? Okay, somebody else may answer the question.
Kick to the curb. Yank from the Security Council.
What was that, sir?
Kicked to the curb, yanked from the Security Council.
Who to the curb?
I said kicked to the curb, yanked from the Security Council.
That's not coming in very clear right now.
Islam. He said kick to the curb and yanked from the Security Council.
Oh, okay. Meaning what?
That Morocco would take that seat.
Thank you. Who answered that question?
Miriam. But I think that's what the first gentleman had said. You just couldn't hear him.
Okay. Thank you, Mariama. Aziz of AMPAG.
Yes.
Point of privilege.
Yes. Whoever asked for a point of privilege, you sound pretty far and muffled.
Sorry about that. Do I sound clear now?
No, you don't.
What about now?
Now you sound like a human being.
Sorry about that.
Right.
Do we write reforms to break down the Security Council?
Do we write reforms to bring down the Security Council?
Yes.
Okay. Why would we want to bring down the Security Council?
Break them apart?
Right. Why would we want to do that?
Well, I'm talking about the United States.
United States, I think he means to write reforms to get them kicked off the Security Council for being in contradiction of going into other countries and helping to decolonize, but still practicing extraterritorial over here in Morocco.
Right.
Okay. Well, by default, we will be taking that seat as the point. But I'm glad that you mentioned that they're exercising extraterritoriality in Morocco. I'm glad you mentioned that. Let me make something clear for everyone on the floor. As acquiescing, subjugated Moorish subjects, we technically didn't have a jurisdiction because we didn't have any government, right? So, though you may see it as extraterritoriality, right? Because the empire was still, and it's still there. It's just absent of a government. And that's the problem with not having that jurisdiction there to prove extraterritoriality, right? So my point is that they had to maintain order, right, in Morocco. They couldn't just let people become savages, right, and go lawless. So they kind of like, I'm not defending them, don't get me wrong, but in the absence of the competent authority of Morocco, the United States had to, utilize their laws to keep the peace and security in Morocco.
That's why they have limited jurisdiction, correct?
That's correct. Thank you. Thank you. Somebody studying. Limited jurisdiction. Now, we're dealing with a new status. See, the old status under customs and usage was acquiescence, subjugation, i.e. colonialism, which represents paragraph 2 of the Treaty of Madrid, Article 15, paragraph 2, which states foreign naturalization heretofore acquired by subjects of Morocco, right? The laws of the country will continue to them without any jurisdiction. Without any restrictions. That's the old status. Under that status, they had limited authority, limited jurisdiction, limited powers. What we have done and what we were supposed to do, which was actually a ruling, was paragraph 1 of the Treaty of Madrid, Article 15. Any subject of Morocco who has been naturalized in a foreign country must choose between the entire submission to the laws of the empire. Those who have chosen the laws of the empire under paragraph 1 have now established a new status. Excuse me. Right? We have established the lines. We have made clear the lines of jurisdiction. Now, for them to reach into our jurisdiction and do as they see fit with their criminal laws, or their law enforcement and their courts. That's what I should say. That's now the ultimate practice of extraterritoriality, because you cannot interfere in the internal affairs of another state. We just learned that today, didn't we? Right? You can't dip your hands in my cookie jar, if you will. So now it becomes extraterritoriality. So in order now to prove that at the International Court of Justice, we need case law. We need evidence, really, right? We need documented evidence of such exercise in order to properly hold them accountable at the International Court of Justice. Right? And so we're building a case against them, that exact matter. And that's a detailed importance for the Moors to take away from this conversation. It's no different than when I was speaking earlier about kidnapping or hostage taking versus being arrested. If you're in their jurisdiction, if you are under the status of paragraph 2 of the Treaty of Madrid, Article 15, right, as a Moorish subject, then that's just an arrest. You're a citizen, bro. You broke their laws. However, if you had chosen between the entire commission and you are of your own state, now it's kidnapping. Now it's extra. You see, now you're reaching into my jurisdiction to pull one of my people out of there to put them in your concentration camp. Now you're looking at hostage taking. Now you're looking at kidnapping. Now you're looking at extraterritoriality. Y'all understand what I'm saying? Or is there any questions to what I just said?
Point of interest. So they're gallivanting on the international stage, letting the extraterritorial jurisdiction is being called, capitulation regime. The capitulation regime, based on what you were just saying, is that they're saying that, well, they're capitulating. They are acquiescing to us and being citizens of our corporations. And so when we declare statehood and we move forward in our self-determination, and they impede on that self-determination in any form or fashion, that becomes an act of genocide. And so we go through the process of friendly application, documenting all the way up from the local state, from the provincial government to the WRC, to the UN, to the UCJ, but all of it's being documented to show that they have been impeding on the rights of our self-determination. I yield.
And well, excellent point of interest. Who was speaking again?
As Brother North Star, Prime Minister, Rome.
Are you over what state?
Massachusetts.
Oh yeah, Islam. Bet.
Islam.
What What position are you taking in that political group forming, good brother?
Wazir, Prime Minister.
Okay, good. Okay, good,
Yes,
good.
ma'am.
You got to know your stuff to be the wazir. And these were great points that you mentioned. Absolutely correct. Any other points of interest? So the other thing here now with the Security Council is the veto power. This is how come they can sometimes get away with committing their own atrocities and only to turn around and veto any actions against them. And that's one of the problems of the United Nations is the power of having of the permanent Security Council members to be able to veto stuff, what does it say here? It says permanent members can veto, block any substantive Security Council resolution, including those on the admission of new member states to the United Nations or nominees for the office of Secretary General. So they can veto a nominee, they can veto a state from being part of the General Assembly as perhaps the 194th state of the member states, right? They can veto actions against them, such as Russia. But that didn't go too far because Russia still was held accountable, right? So when we come into power now, and we take our seat in the affairs of men, i.e., the Permanent Security Council, we would have the authority and the power to get rid of the veto power or control the veto power on behalf of fallen humanity. So you can't uplift. See, when you say fallen humanity, you're not talking about just Moors, and you're not talking about just people in the West. You're talking about planet Earth. Humanity is planet Earth. Without planet Earth, there is no humanity. And through the Act of Algeciras of 1906, we were given back the power to govern planet Earth yet again. Yet again. Not for the first time. We just fell. We fell out of the constitutional fold of government. We lost our way. We're ancient people, man. You can't expect to be on top forever. We made mistakes. And for that, we had to pay. So remember the pain points that we dealt with in our fall. Remember the poverty. Remember the alcoholism, the crack addiction, the welfare, the unemployment. Even though under those circumstances, we still had millionaire Black folks, and we still do. We always had a way out of poverty. However, it was systematic nonetheless. And a lot of our people got caught up and stuck in poverty and all the cares of the world. So remember that condition. Because when we go back into power, this is how you must treat humanity. Treat humanity in such a way that you will always remember what it was like to be subjugated, right? To have less, to be mistreated. We have to come into the spirit of love instead of hate. So we have been tasked yet again with the arduous task and divine works of raising humanity back upright, right? Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. We're bringing all of humanity back up into their higher self. But in order for us to be able to accomplish that, we ourselves got to come back into our higher selves, Morris. Because humanity fell because we fell. When we get back up, humanity will rise back up. The world go as we go. But we have to remember the poverty and the pain points so that we can now reign supreme again and remember not to remember and ensure, guarantee that we don't make that happen. We don't make those mistakes again of enslaving people and subjugating people and conquering people and just, all the mistakes we've made in the past that caused us to fall. What goes around comes around. Karma is a mother. Watch your mouth, right?
Facts.
There's a chair at the United Nations that's waiting on us. The world is waiting on us. So we got to stop playing games, Morris. We must stop delaying our own justice. The longer we delay our own justice, the longer humanity will be in darkness. You know how they talk about the changing of the guard? You know how they talk about the Illuminati? You know how they talk about the New World Order? Well, we are the Illuminati. We are the illuminated ones. We represent the New World Order. We represent the changing of the guard. Ain't no Donald Trump coming to change the changing of the guard and Trump. No, hell no. Yeah, I know the royal family of Saudi Arabia gave them the sword dance and they were using scimitars and all that. But he ain't the one who's going to establish a succession of state. He can't do it for us and no one can do it for us. We have to do it for ourselves. It's called self-determination. Right? We have to rise up in love instead of hate, right? To then take back the governance of our great enterprise, of our empire, which essentially represents the world. Moroccan law runs the world. The United Nations Charter and all its resolutions, conventions, agreements, etc., treaties, it's all based in Moroccan law. So let's make it happen. Let's get to the Permanent Security Council seat. Let's get them up out of there. Put them right back under our jurisdiction where they belong. We must trade places again and institute all these reforms. What are they? Administrative, judicial, educational, financial, economic, and military reforms. We have to reform all those aspects of our empire because it's been corrupted. So we have to reform it.
Excuse me.
More.
Can you please repeat what you were saying? Like you said, education and financial. I just want to make sure I'm getting all that down.
Okay. I'll do you one better. Thank you for that question, and that was a great question. Where is it? Y'all see all these tabs I got open is ridiculous. Give me 1 second. Where is it? Oh, Lord. Did I close it out by accident or something? Okay, hold on 1 second. I'll find it. It's here. Nope. Nope. There we go. Right here. You can write it down. Administrative, judicial, educational, economic, financial, military reforms. It's a hell of an implied task, Morris. We got a lot of work to do. The good news, though, however, is that we've got a lot of Moorish proteges, i.e., house Negroes, who's in government on behalf of the United States, who work within many of those aspects of government. And they too shall choose between entire submission to the laws of the empire and come back into the empire. And they would remain working in their respective departments within the United States government as overseers on behalf of the empire. Did y'all catch what I just said?
Yes, I did. So if you're a police officer, correct? Like at a police station, would you oversee that police station if you were if you start becoming a Moroccan national or a diplomat of your state?
When we force decolonization, is when we start to trade places. As such, we now become the overseers, the managers of the great enterprise known as the United States of America or the United States Corporation. So we would have to assign Moors in different areas to oversee different departments. Let's say, for example, the agricultural department. We would need a more of the empire within the government of the empire, right? Working, let's say, like, for example, one of our titles is the Razam, right? We've got Razam of nationality, Razam, RASM, Razam of transportation. So let's say the Razam of agriculture, for example, right? That Moor would oversee the agricultural department of the United States, meaning that they would be supervising them, making sure, okay, let's see, I hope you're not using any pesticides in these foods now.
Nice. Okay, nice.
Mm-hmm. So we would have Moors overseeing all those different departments. This is how we clean this stuff up. This is how we clean up the food. We oversee the agricultural department. Make sure that what is it called? Montesano, whatever the name of this.
Monsanto.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not using pesticides in the food. Yeah, there you go. They're not using pesticides for the food or anything, that type of stuff,
Because that is killing us.
What was that?
That is killing us.
Well, I mean, amongst many things, because we've been acquiescing. Okay, so what's another reform? Educational reform. That's killing us too. So we need Moors to oversee the education department. Right? You cannot make
everything that they use to weaponize us. We have to clean up the air, the water, everything. They use the environment as a weapon against. So all of that has to be overseen.
And point of privilege, me or more, babe, right there, AMPAG. When you go to Wikipedia and you look on Board of Education on the BOT Gates, I mean one of the Gates boys, and I think it's John Gates or Fred Gates. I think it's John T. Gates and Fred Rockefeller. They give you a detailed idea of what they want to do in their education system and some of the verbiage that they used was, we're going to take those royal folks and we're going to teach them not to be lawyers, but we're going to teach not to be great people. So we're going to take away education and teach not teach the good things to the royal folks. And they are talking about us. They say they're going to teach us to be, teach their children to be lawyers, doctors, but they was going to teach our children to be entertainers, fake history. They got it laid out real good. So if you want to check that out under Wikipedia, you'll see their plan is laid out 1 year away from us.
I believe one of the slogans, point of privilege, I'm sorry about that. Well, I believe one of their slogan was that they didn't want thinkers. They wanted a nation of workers. I yield.
Yes, and labor. When you're a woman go to the have a baby, what's she going in labor? What do they call the work hall? Labor. So they gave you an idea. In the biblical text say, I will defile her child from the womb. So from the womb, with the birth certificate and all these things that they do in the hospital, the biblical text is like Noble Joe Ali said, it's gonna help us destroy them. And it's when you really look at everything that they're doing, the biblical text is telling you. He says, Satan gonna defile the child from the womb. And they say Babylon. Babel means language. And the United States they came and changed all the language of the world to English, to ancient English. I'm not saying that they changed because all languages are ours, but even with the language, they say we're gonna defile a child from the womb. So through the board of education, through the language, through the contract they force the mother in, the contract that is hidden that the mother go in when the child is born. And we are those fallen angels. Like Brother Abdul was saying, we fell, and we are those fallen angels. So I yield with that.
All that you're referring to is the cares of the world that Noble Drew Ali was stepping out of onto our Marak of salvation. See, which is Morocco, which is our jurisdiction, which is what we're doing. Finally, the third and fourth generation, seeing and knowing, to put the old Moorish Americans in the back. Because we're not Moorish, we are Moroccan.
They say, give Caesar back what belonged to him. And say Babylon has fallen, come out of her, and that means come back into your own state, come out the United States, and come into your own states. The biblical text is all symbolic messages with what we're doing right now. I yield.
It is, but the thing with that is when we go to court, we can't go with literature or Bibles or Qurans or anything of that nature. We have to come with law. And what people don't understand is that the written law is the manifestation of divine law, which is the abstract, right? So the verses that you're quoting has been made manifest and coded in international law language to utilize to bring forth such message, such as the meek shall inherit the earth. We must come out of Babylon. Well, how do you do that? Go ahead, brother.
I was saying, absolutely. How did you do that? By coming and giving your allegiance to your Moroccan states.
Yeah. You have to come in. You have to come in a statehood. You have to choose between entire submission to the laws of the empire. You must claim your nationality. The only way to claim your nationality is through a government. You can't claim your nationality through a website, a temple, a church, a mosque, a whatever else, organization, whatever. No, state government. Where is your body of laws? Do you have a set of laws? Do you have a body of laws that you can enforce against the United States if they infringe upon your rights? See, that's how that works. Your legal argument comes from your laws, not their laws. That's a legal argument, but as a citizen, not as a separate jurisdiction, national. That's why you can't say you have no jurisdiction, when in all actuality they do. So you're put into psychological evaluations. So I'll say it again. The empire in our several states, the empire itself is the mothership. And the several states are those other subordinate ships. Like you will see in Star Wars with the Death Star, right? But that doesn't represent the empire because the Death Star was blown up, right? So that's not the empire. But you do have these allegories in Black culture, and Black culture dealing with a spaceship of some sort, right? That represents your state government. Everything has been coded for us. And a lot of these codes been going over our heads. We're looking for aliens to come and save us, the Palladians and the Intergalactic Federation.
And Jesus.
Jesus as well. and the brothers from the East. The brothers from the East is the United Nations. Ain't the United Nations in the east of the West? That's the brothers from the East, the United Nations. Let's petition them. And let's get back to the United Nations. The Charter read, Chapter 5, the Security Council. I preface the Security Council by going over the Security Council, understanding who the Security Council members are, because the time will come when we will take our seat at the Permanent Security Council. So I'm not sure, brother, if the Inspector General is still on. Could you begin to read here, brother, for Chapter 5, the Security Council?
Yeah, did you want to go back where we left off, or are you trying to read the whole thing over again?
No. I wasn't. What I captured here is all I. What we talked about is all I needed to capture when you read on what you read. We ain't going over the whole thing.
I appreciate it. Yep, no worries. Chapter 5, the Security Council composition. Article 23, number 1. Security Council shall consist of 15 members of the United Nations, the Republic of China, France, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, which is now Russia, which is now the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, United Kingdom of Great Britain, and Northern Ireland, and the United States of America shall be permanent members of the Security Council. The General Assembly shall elect 10 other members of the United Nations to be non-permanent members of the Security Council. Due regard being specially paid in the first instance to the contribution of members of the United Nations to the maintenance of international peace and security and to the other purposes of the organization, and also to the equitable geographical distribution. Number 2. The non-permanent members of the Security Council shall be elected for a term of 2 years. In the first election of the non-permanent members, after the increase of the membership of the Security Council from 11 to 15. 2 of the 4 additional members shall be chosen for a term of 1 year, and a retiring member shall not be eligible for immediate re-election. Number 3, each member of the Security Council shall have 1 representative. Functions and powers. Article 24, number 1. In order to ensure prompt and effective action by the United Nations, its members confer on the Security Council primary responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security, and agree that in carrying out its duties under the responsibilities of the Security Council, act on their behalf. Number 2, in discharging these duties, the Security Council shall act in accordance with the purposes and principles of the United Nations. The specific powers granted to the Security Council for the discharge of these duties are laid down in chapters 6, 7, 8, and 12. Number 3, Security Council shall submit annual and, when necessary, special reports to the General Assembly for its consideration. Article 25, the members of the United Nations agree to accept and carry out the decisions of the Security Council in accordance with the present charter. Article 26, in order to promote the establishment and maintenance of international peace and security with the least diversion of armaments of the world's human and economic resources, the Security Council shall be responsible for formulating, with the assistance of the Military Staff Committee referred to in Article 47, plans to be submitted to the members of the United Nations for the establishment of a system for the regulation of armaments.
Okay. There's a reason why I would tell you that the charter and international law itself is based in Moroccan law. The 26 adheres to chapter 2 or 3 of the Act of Algeciras. Oops. Excuse me. Let's take a look at it real quick. Where are we? Okay, right here. let me read this real quick. Like, let's say, for example, Article 16, the importation of sporting and high-priced arms, parts of guns, cartridges, loaded and unloaded, is likewise forbidden. Hold up a second. Let's go up. Let's go here. Which article is it? Right here. The arms, parts of guns, and ammunition intended for the troops of His Sharif Majesty will be admitted after the fulfillment of the following formalities. A declaration signed by the Moorish Minister of War. The good brother that's reading right now, he is the Minister of War for Alodia Morse Parade in Monte, Colorado. Minister of Defense. And he serves in the WRC as the Inspector General. Right? So he is responsible for this, right? It says a declaration signed by the Moorish Minister of War describing the number and nature of such articles ordered abroad must be presented to the legation of the country of their origin, whose visa shall be affixed thereto. Let me explain this to you. When it says must be presented, it says that the declaration signed by the Moorish Minister of War describing the number and nature of such articles ordered abroad from a foreign nation, right, must be presented to the legation of the country of their origin. So at the diplomatic body, which was the original United Nations, remember we talked about it, the diplomatic body became the League of Nations, the League of Nations became the United Nations. Under the diplomatic body, each foreign country had a legation. The American legation, the British legation, the German legation, etc. Right? So it will need to be presented to the legation of the country of the origin. So if it's the Americans, for example, then it needs to be presented to the legation of their country. And it needs to be signed by the Moorish Minister of War. I.e., we have control over the guns. Right? The passage through the customs of the cases and packages containing the arms and munitions delivered at the order of the Moorish government shall be effected upon the presentation, 1, of the aforesaid declaration, 2, of the invoice indicating the number and weight of the packages and the number and kind of the arms and munitions contained therein. This document must be visaed by the legation of the country of their origin, which will mark on the back the successive amounts previously passed through the customs. This visa will be refused when the order shall have been entirely delivered. Then it goes on to say the importation of sporting and high-priced arms, parts of guns, cartridges, loaded and unloaded, is likewise forbidden. It may nonetheless be authorized, 1, for the strictly personal requirements of the importer, or 2, for supplying the gun shops authorized by Article 18. Right? Then it goes on to say, Article 17, sporting and high-priced arms and munitions for the same will be admitted for the strictly personal requirements of the importer on presentation of a permit issued by the representative of the Moxin at Tangier. You have to get permission from us to have guns. If the importer is a foreigner, this permit will only be granted at the request of his legation. So if he's a Frenchman, then it will need to come from the French legation. With respect to ammunition for sporting purposes, each permit shall allow a maximum of 1,000 cartridges or the supplies necessary for the manufacture of 1,000 cartridges. The permit shall only be issued to those who have never been sentenced for any offense. You see, so you can't get a gun license in American jurisdiction, right? If you got a felony, can you? So that shows that they're following the Act of Algeciras, right? Only such persons as have secured a special and temporary license from the Moorish government shall be allowed to open and operate retail shops for the sale of sporting guns and ammunition. Has any of these pawn shops got permission from the Moorish government to sell sporting guns and ammunition? The answer is no. But why not? Because what Moorish government was they going to report to anyway? These Moors been acquiescing. We get to do whatever the hell we want. Oh, and by the way, let's enforce this on them. See, they got to get permission from us to use guns. So we want to enforce their constitution, a right to bear arms. Man, please. We're supposed to enforce the act of adversaries. They're supposed to ask for permission to bear arms, not us. All right. So what is the name of this chapter? To get back to the point. Any questions about this? Regulations concerning the detection and repression of the contraband of arms. So Article 26 is enshrined in that particular philosophy. Law, actually, it's not a philosophy, it's law. This is how you know that the charter itself is Moroccan law. Any questions on what I just broke down?
On the privilege.
Yep.
They have an obligation to Moroccan Moors. That's why they changed our names to all these stupid names. They don't have an obligation to those. You know what I mean?
Yes, indeed.
Like that. Yeah.
It's a reason why they labeled us Negro, Blacks, Colored, and named the land America. The word America, the jurisdiction of America, the idea of America is that of a overlay, like artificial grass on a football field, for example. But the organic soil beneath that artificial grass is Morocco. So United States of America, or America, is the artificial grass, and Morocco is the organic soil beneath the artificial grass. You see? Extraterritoriality. It's an overlay over on top of our jurisdiction. That's why Dorothy, excuse me. Sorry, y'all, I'm getting over this cold. That's why Dorothy didn't have to go too far when she went back home to Kansas. She was already in Kansas, separate jurisdiction. But the problem for us is that we never defined the lines of jurisdiction. Without a government, there is no jurisdiction. So they claim all the jurisdiction. Now that we have governments, we have defined the jurisdiction. They no longer can claim additional jurisdiction. Because if you do so, now you're violating international law for real. And you can be held accountable. And you will be held accountable. So we just got to continue building the case. All right, good brother Marcus, you can go to Article 27. Appreciate it. If you're reading, you must be on mute, brother.
No, I haven't started reading yet. My phone wouldn't click over. Article 27, number 1, each member of the Security Council shall have 1 vote. Number 2, decisions of the Security Council on procedural matters shall be made by an affirmative vote of 9 members. Number 3, decisions of the Security Council on all other matters shall be made by the affirmative vote of 9 members, including the concurring vote of the permanent members. That's the P5. Provided that in the decision under chapter 6 and under paragraph 3 of the Article 52, a party to dispute shall abstain from voting.
And by the way, you're right. P5, that's their nickname, Permanent 5, the P5, Security Council members. Go ahead, bro.
Procedure, Article 28. Number 1, Security Council shall be organized to be able to function continuously. Each member of the Security Council shall, for this purpose, be represented at all times at the seat of the organization. Number 2, the Security Council shall hold periodic meetings at which each of the members may, if it so desires, be represented by a member of the government or by some other specially designated representative. Number 3, the Security Council may hold meetings at such place other than the seat of the organization as in its judgment will best facilitate its work. In other words, it does not have to have a meeting at the UN. If we have to go to another location in another country that's feasible for everybody to attend, then they can facilitate that work there. That's what they mean by best facilitate its work.
I appreciate your interpretation. Continue.
Article 29. The Security Council may establish such subsidiary organs as it deems necessary for the performance of its functions. Article 30. The Security Council shall adopt in its own rules of procedures, including the method of selecting its president. Article 31. Any member of the United Nations which is not a member of the Security Council may participate without vote in the discussion of any question brought before the Security Council whenever the latter considers that the interests of that member are specifically affected. Article 30.
And to interpret that, it could be Brazil. Well, yeah, Brazil. No, well, Brazil is one of the 15. It's 15. Go ahead, brother. Were you going to say something? Okay, so there's 15 members to the Security Council, but you got the permanent 5. Right. So somebody want to say something?
I think that might be some backdrop or something.
Okay. So let's say I don't know, Chile. It might be an issue dealing with Chile, so their representative will be affected, right, by the decision. So he gets to deliberate with the Security Council, but he has no vote in the matter. That's the interpretation for Article 31. Go ahead, brother. Article 32.
Article 32. Any member of the United Nations which is not a member of the Security Council, or any state which is not a member of the United Nations, if it is a party to a dispute under consideration by the Security Council, shall be invited to participate without vote in the discussion relating to the dispute. The Security Council shall lay down such conditions as it deems just for the participation of the state which is not a member of the United Nations.
Somebody mute themselves, please. Thank you, RG. And that particular article is a build-up from Article 31, which is essentially the same example as I gave about Chile. So now let's go into Chapter 6, which is the Pacific Settlement of Dispute. It's short. It's only, 2 articles, I believe? 3. It's not too many. Or maybe it's a few articles. But the point is this is a very important chapter. This is the instructions on how to settle disputes with that you may have with a opposing state. And so us as Moroccans, connotatively labeled as Negroes, Blacks, Colors, denationalization, right? We have a contentious dispute with the United States. We got a problem with the United States. So how do we solve that problem? Well, first of all, it has to be done in a competent way. But what is the competent way? Chapter 6, Pacific Settlement of Disputes, give you the answer to that problem, to that question. So go ahead, brother. Article 33.
Chapter 6, Contentious Disputes, Article 33. The parties to any dispute, the continuance of which is likely to endanger the maintenance of international peace and security, shall, first of all, seek a solution by negotiation, inquiry, mediation, conciliation, arbitration, judicial settlement, resort to regional agencies or agreements, or other peaceful means of their own choice.
All right. Well, right there. So there's a Moorish American who said, I'm hearing all over my Telegram or Instagram about all these Moorish government this, go Moorish government that, treaties this, treaties that. My question is, why haven't they held the United States accountable, the colonists accountable, with their atrocities against our people. Huh. I say it's suspicious, right? I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what he said. Well, he's coming from an ignorant, he's leaning on his own ignorant misunderstanding, right? Because he doesn't understand international law and he does not know what we're doing. And it's okay because it ain't just him. It ain't just you, sir. It's all y'all.
Islam.
Go ahead, brother.
Are we talking about the same Moor who's planning to go to the United Nations doorsteps and file suit against the United States without a state government?
I think he probably don't end up staying in.
That guy.
The same one, right?
Yes, that guy.
Okay.
Mr. Alibaba. Right? And so, you're just highlighting your ignorance because you don't understand the game, right? This is a whole nother game, baby. And in this jurisdiction, the game is to be told, not to be sold. See, in the Moorish American jurisdiction, the game is to be sold, not to be told. No. We tell the game. We don't sell the game. And this is the game right here. Number one, the parties to any dispute. So we got a dispute with the United States. We're seeking justice for their crimes against humanity and their genocide against our people, denationalization of our people, right? Mass denationalization. The parties to any dispute, the continuance of which is likely to endanger the maintenance of international peace and security. You got that right? Shall first of all seek a solution by negotiation. Step one. Step two, inquiry. Step three, mediation. Step four, conciliation. Step five, arbitration. And then judicial settlement. You see? Y'all ain't decolonized not one block. What's taking y'all so long? Y'all, man, whatever. Y'all playing games. Y'all fraud. You guys ain't blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you're highlighting your own ignorance of Article 33 of the Pacific Settlement of Disputes. You don't go straight into adjudication. You don't establish your state and then say, okay, petition the United Nations for the ICJ to come in to get involved. No, you first begin with by way of negotiation, inquiry, mediation, conciliation, arbitration, and then you come to judicial settlement. So that's the due process of law in terms of settling a dispute on an international level, which in our case, that would be the due process of decolonization, because the dispute that we have with the United States can be bundled as one thing, colonialism. So we must decolonize. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, friendly application. Those are the friendly applications of exercising the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. We're acting in honor of that treaty, peace and friendship, and moving forward with that friendly application. This is all Aquarian age stuff. What that brother's doing is probably an updated version of the March on Washington and the Million Man March, which is still Piscean age stuff. Piscean age energy is not workable in Aquarian age. This is an age of enlightenment. This is an age where, as you were saying earlier, the meek shall inherit the earth. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the return of the Jesus. We are the Christ consciousness on the planet. All those laws, those three principles represent Christ consciousness in action. And so the charters that kind of bit from that Treaty of Algiers. They knew that this was the way to get the planet back in order, and it came from our ancient ancestors that were channeling the 7 laws of the universe, and so we are the return of the ancient ones, and this order that is new world order, which is based on ancient world order. The return of the ancient world order is this Christ consciousness taking place as we speak. Decolonization is all a part of that, and so I feel for the people that are still operating in with Piscean age energy. It's just not going to work in these days and times. You got to forget everything you thought you knew and start opening up to receiving the new information that's coming in, that's based on the old information that was here. Like you said, we are the phoenix rising out of the ashes. You said that earlier, and you said that in your proclamation video. We are the phoenix rising up out of the ashes. I yield.
Islam, brother. You said a lot of great points. The rose that's growing from concrete.
Yeah.
You represent a rose that's growing out of the concrete. Where I get that from, Tupac. Right. So to your point, J. Edgar Hoover, right, made famous the statement or the saying to stop the rise of the Black Messiah. And it was misinterpreted as some Jesus guy that's coming from the sky type of thing, right? Or one individual guy that's going to raise up from amongst the people or something. Well, no. Messiah is a body of people. It's like the body of Osiris represents a body politic, a group of people coming together, not an individual, right? And that's what this represents, coming together under one constitution, though, which is what's giving you the full powers that's found in good and due form, and the authority to enforce contracts against another state. Well, United States is a state, right? It's a corporation, but it acts as a state. It has 3 branches. It has a constitution. And so when you say friendly application, good brother, that you brought up again to point out the due process of settling a dispute, that would be Article 24 of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, right? Those mechanisms is the friendly application, right? Mediation, arbitration, conciliation, etc., right? If any differences shall arise by either party, that would be the United States of America, the Americans, or Morocco, the Moroccans, right? Infringing on any of the articles of this treaty, peace and harmony shall remain notwithstanding in the fullest force. So we ain't supposed to be at war with each other. We're supposed to be in peace and harmony. Until a friendly application shall be made for an arrangement, and until that application shall be rejected, no appeal shall be made to arms. Period. Right? And even if there was a war to break up between the parties, 9 months shall be granted to all the subjects of both parties to dispose of their effects and retire with their property. And it is further declared that whatever indulges in trade or otherwise shall be granted to any of the Christian powers. The citizens of the United States shall be equally entitled to them. And that right there is what they considered the most favorite nation clause, because there were certain rights, right, additional rights that was given to the Christian powers on other treaties. So here on 24 is saying that the United States they're equally entitled to those same rights. But that's beside the point. The first half of this paragraph is the focus. If any difference shall arise by their parties infringing on by either party infringing on any of the articles of this treaty, peace and harmony shall remain notwithstanding in the fullest force, until a friendly application shall be made for an arrangement, and until that application shall be rejected, no appeal shall be made to arms. So this is how you know, yet again, that the charter is based in Moroccan law, right? It's getting its ideas from the treaties. And so this is the reason why we haven't forced decolonization yet, Moors, is because we're going through this entire process, negotiation, inquiry, right? Mediation, conciliation, arbitration. We're trying to get to here, judicial settlement. Not trying to get there. We are going to get there. We're working our way there. We're not trying. We are doing. Islam? I'm dear brother Marcus. You may continue, please, my favorite IG.
Number 2, the Security Council shall, when it deems necessary, call upon the parties to settle their dispute by such means. Article 34, the Security Council may investigate any dispute or any situation which might lead to international friction or give rise to a dispute in order to determine whether the continuance of the dispute or situation is likely to endanger the maintenance of international peace and security. Article 35, number 1, any member of the United Nations may bring any dispute or any situation of the nature referred to in Article 34 to the attention of the Security Council or of the General Assembly. Number 2, a state which is not.
Any member of the United Nations, whether it be a member state or a non-member state, as long as you accede to the charter and recognize the International Court of Justice, you're a member of the United Nations. Right? Now, member state is a different status, but any and all countries are non-members of the United Nations. And it says any member of the United Nations may bring any dispute. So that means that you have to be a state, because you can't be a member of the United Nations if you're not a state. Or any situation of the nature referred to in Article 34 to the attention of the Security Council or of the General Assembly. And remember, the Security Council is the 5 permanent members plus the other 10 non-permanent members, which makes up 15. And then all 193 of those states represent the General Assembly. All right? All right, brother, go ahead, continue.
Number 2, a state which is not a member of the United Nations may bring to the attention of the Security Council or the General Assembly any dispute to which it is a party if it accepts in advance the purpose of the dispute, the obligations of the Pacific Settlement provided in the present charter. Number 3, the proceedings of the General Assembly in respect of the matters brought to its attention under the article will be subject to the provisions of Articles 11 and 12. Article 36. 1, the Security Council may, at any stage of the dispute of the nature referred to in Article 33 or of the situation of like nature, recommend appropriate procedure or methods of adjustment. Number 2, the Security Council should take into consideration any procedures for the settlement of the dispute which have already been adopted by the parties. Number 3, in making recommendations under the article, the Security Council should also take into consideration the legal dispute should, as general rule, be referred by the parties to the International Court of Justice in accordance with the provisions of the statute of the court.
Okay, so you see, making recommendations on the article, under this article, the Security Council should also take into consideration that legal disputes should, as a general rule, be referred by the parties to the International Court of Justice in accordance with the provisions of the statutes of the court. And so you have to accede to and recognize and therefore recognize the statutes of the court in order for you to have the power to bring them to the court. You see? All right, go ahead, brother.
Article 37. 1, should the parties to a dispute of the nature referred to in Article 33 fail to settle it by the means indicated in the article, they shall refer to the Security Council. Number 2, the Security Council deems that the continuance of the dispute is in fact likely to endanger the maintenance of international peace and security, it shall decide whether to take action under Article 36 or to recommend such terms of the settlement as it may consider appropriate. Article 38. Without prejudice to the provisions of Article 33 to 37, the Security Council may, if all parties to any dispute so request, make recommendations to the parties with a view to specific settlement of the dispute.
All right, Islam, brother. I appreciate it.
So good,
Go
brother. I am getting ready for my next event. Someone else has to move on from here for me, please, and thank you.
No worries. I appreciate you. We're done with this read anyway.
Ashe.
Ashe, brother. So for further clarity, refer back to the AMPAG study session. J. Bay spent, I don't know, somewhere in the range of 10 classes just focused on the Pacific settlement of dispute. I couldn't tell you exactly which number it was. I think it's in the 80s. Might be in the 80s. It's like 10 videos back to back where he just focuses on Pacific settlement of disputes. Right? There's a lot of gems that you can pull from it. And whenever you watch and study the AMPAG study sessions, well, you're not studying if you're not pulling up the reference points and reading them yourself as he makes his interpretations. That's how you study. Don't just listen. Pull up the documents and read along with what he's reading or what the class is reading. Follow along with the interpretations. Highlight some stuff. That's how you study. That's how you get it. That's how you get it quickly. Of course, whenever you have the time, because I know people are, we all, busy with our jobs and whatever else, what have you. It is what it is. For now, this is why decolonization is the order of the day, because we should not be engaged in labor at the job, not as the heirs of the land. So this is why decolonization is important. This is why nationality, decolonization, and statehood is the order of the day. If it ain't statehood, it's falsehood. Period. With that, I yield the floor for any questions, comments, concerns about the class before we begin the closeout. It's 10 o'clock. Islam, I yield.
Islam.
Islam.
I want to say thank you again for another enlightening presentation. It's always a smorgasbord of a good meal every time I come into this. The jurisprudence, the civics. I'm a medicine walker, so I know good medicine when I hear it, and all that we've gone through and read is good medicine in civics and in jurisprudence. But to be candid with you, the most poignant and best medicine that I heard this evening was reminding us to remember the pain, to remember all the trials and tribulations, to let it register within us and let it total up to love and forgiveness, to move forward, to remember that it was our falling that caused humanity to fall, and we paid the price. And just like what it takes to make a diamond, that pressure, we've withstood that pressure, and now the diamond is being made, or the sun is about to rise again, and you're reminding us to remember all of that and keep it in its proper perspective. that is the best medicine in this class this evening for me. I yield.
Gratitude, my good brother. Thank you very much. And that credit goes to J-Bay because he mentioned that in one of his classes. And it always stuck with me. Because just as well as you, to me, that was the best piece of medicine out of that particular class. And all I did was repeat it tonight. So thank you, my good brother.
Ashe. Islam.
Anyone else? Well, the Camelback and should I say, add on to what the brother was saying. George Washington, Georgie boy, in his letter to the Sultan, he complained about the regencies that was warring with them, and they hadn't done nothing to that regency. Who was he talking about? Right? He was talking about us. We were going in on the Europeans, man, on the Americans. They're Americans. Let's call them who they are. Keeping in mind that they are a melting pot of many different European nationalities who came together as Americans to establish the United States of America. The Sultan and the courts of Morocco recognized them as Americans. On one of these days, we will go over the document, and I mentioned it before, where the British government were talking down at John Adams, because John Adams was seeking to establish a treaty with Great Britain. And in that correspondence back and forth with John Adams, they were rejecting the notion of them being Americans. You're no Americans. We don't recognize you are British subjects. That's what the British government was saying to them. How dare you approach us as some minister of foreign affairs? You're not a minister of foreign affairs. You're not Americans. You're British subjects. And you will pay for your treasons. This is how they was talking to them. We'll go over that document. They weren't being recognized as Americans nowhere on planet Earth. They were bragging about that to them. The only one who recognized them was Sidi Muhammad.
What was the name of that document, brother?
I have to pull it up again. I don't even have it saved. I have to get with Jay to get that document.
Okay.
I don't recall the name of the document. If not, I would have probably went over it a long time ago. We talked about it, and he made a class about it months ago, probably about 6 months ago. But it's no different than the French protectorate correspondence between France and the United States. Well, it's different than that, but what I'm saying is, my point and what I'm saying with that is that there are documents out there that show and prove certain things. So that particular document showed that the Americans were not being recognized by no one else other than the Sultan. And the French protectorate document shows that who we are. It shows that we are Moorish subjects and native Moors and all that stuff. So that's how they're talking about us. They're talking about us while we were marching and praying. The French government and the U.S. government, their charge d'affaires, the charge d'affaires of France, and the Secretary of State of the United States were corresponding back and forth about these Moors in Morocco and the treaties and all this stuff. It even took place again later on in 1952 at the ICJ. That case was dealing with their rights, the rights of nationals of the United States of America in Morocco. That's the name of the case. And all their rights was coming from treaty rights. The Treaty of Peace and Friendship, acted by the series, the Treaty of Madrid. And so if they're standing on those treaties as their defense in court, right, then what the hell should we be doing? Come on, man. It's common sense, not nonsense. So I don't understand why. So when the brother was saying that the brother that you know those who operate in the Piscean age won't make it. That's the condition that the Moorish Science Temple of America is in. They're operating in the Piscean age. The Noble Drew Ali say that. Lord have mercy. Right? It's the Piscean age, 1913 and 1929. The Moors are stuck in that time period. They won't evolve out of it, out of worship for Prophet Noble Drew Ali as if he's Jesus. To black people is Jesus, to Moorish Americans is Noble Drew Ali. To black people is the church, to Moorish Americans is the temple. It's the same trick bag. And don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that the awareness, I'm not saying that the awareness of Noble Drew Ali is a trick bag. Don't get that twisted. But what I am saying is that the worship of Noble Drew Ali is the trick bag. Noble Drew Ali himself said not to worship him. Study and carry on the laws. Well, when are you going to study and carry on the laws? He said that we lost the empire by science and we'll get it back through science. What science? Well, it ain't biology. It ain't algebra.
Islam, point of interest.
What science was he referring to, real quick? But now that you have a point of interest, hold that point of interest and answer this question, then come to your point of interest. What science is Noble Drew Ali referring to?
Rocket science.
Jurisprudence.
There you go, jurisprudence.
Science of government.
Straight up. Straight up law. Yeah.
Jurisprudence, which is Moroccan law. Moroccan law is Moorish science. We are operating in the highest of the high of Moorish science. We govern all other sciences through Moroccan law. Wouldn't we be governing the pharmaceutical companies? Well, that's science, that's chemistry. We'll be governing them. We'll be governing the doctors in the medical field. Right? That would be medical reforms. How about that?
Yeah.
Go ahead, brother.
Yeah.
Go ahead, brother, with your point of interest.
Islam. I don't think the Moorish Science Temple of America Moors really understood.
Hold on, brother. You sound far. No, we can't. You got to come closer to the mic.
Okay, I said I don't think the Moorish Science Temple of America Moors really understood Noble Drew Ali when he said, "Do not worship me." Okay, and to study the law. You made a statement that he was not Jesus. My understanding of Jesus means justice. Jesus also stated, according to biblical doctrine, that he did not come to change the law, to fulfill the law. And he also told his disciples and followers, do not worship me, but to follow the law. Islam.
Well, y'all remember back in 2000-ish time period, those bracelets, WWJD? Y'all remember that? WWJD. People used to walk around with those bracelets. It had that acronym written on it. WWJD. What it stands for?
What would Jesus do?
Jesus is justice. And justice represents who? The Moors. To your point, good brother.
And when you look at the word Jesus, say just us.
It's wrong.
Yeah.
I have a question. Nova came on Nova Quill's call a few days ago. It's open dealing with the Vienna Convention, and she reported to us that now there's a new requirement in statehood where it's going to be we have to come back or elect a sultan. Now, before I ask you to expound on that, I want to explain why I found that a little unsettling. But before I explain why I found that a little unsettling, I want to preface it by saying I don't have a problem with monarchy as long as it is elected and is for the people, by the people, just as it was back in the Prophet King days, But what I found it a little unsettling is because that Brother Jay had been pounding the drum all that time for I don't know how many sessions on statehood. Sultan became the state, and the state is the sultan, and this is what we're going forth with, and so now what I get, what I'm feeling is the Wizard of Oz says, "Oh, okay, you liquidated the witch and you got her shoes. Now go back and get me the broom of the other witch. Come back with the sultan." That's what I find a little unsettling. Perhaps you can expound on that and make me feel a little better. I yield.
Islam, brother. I appreciate your sentiment. It's interesting. Brother Jay said that this would happen, that someone would come with that sentiment, if not all the Moors. And the fact of the matter is, the idea of the United States of Morocco was psychological warfare on the Moors. Let me tell you what I mean by that. The Moors needed to come into the understanding of unity, of us all being united. So pounding the word United States of America, Morocco, United States of Morocco. It was to get the Moors acclimated to the idea of unity. That's number one.
I share.
Number two, this ain't no monarchy. So the Sultan would be elected by the people. There would be a democratic process of elections.
I share.
And so why the empire and why the Sultan? Okay, let's go to the reference point. Where is it? There we go. So we got here the Act of Algeciras. Let's go to the preamble. Sorry about me moving fast on this. It's scrolling up so fast it kind of could make you dizzy. Let's see. Okay, so down here it says, inspired by the interest attaching itself to the reign of order, peace, and prosperity in Morocco, and recognizing that the attainment thereof can only be effected by means of the introduction of reforms, here we go again, based upon the triple principles of the sovereignty and independence of His Majesty, the Sultan. Right? So what is the Act of Algeciras? It's a contract. And in the contract, the parties must be known. So if we're going to enforce the contract, we have to come with the party name of the contract. And according to the contract, the party name is the Empire of Morocco and the Sultan of Morocco. It's the sovereignty and independence of His Majesty the Sultan, not the sovereignty and independence of the Prime Minister of the United States of Morocco. United States of Morocco is not the party name, and president or prime minister or wazir or anything like that is not the party name. We can't leave any loopholes for the United States to attempt to exploit. Oh, that's not the name on the contract. The name of the contract, yeah, you're right. It's the Empire of Morocco and the Sultan of Morocco. And so the Sultan would be elected based on the democratic process of, remember, there's a difference. See, the Moors got a misconcept about republic and a democracy. They think that the democracy and a republic is a structure. It's a structure of government, whereas the democracy is a demonic, evil structure that enables slavery, etc., and republic is for the people by the people. That is an egregious misconception. Democracy is not a structure of a government. Democracy is a process. The voting process is a democracy, is what makes up a democracy. The republic is a structure, meaning that it's for the people by the people, a constitutional republic that is not based on any form of monarchy. So you feeling unsettled is because you're thinking monarchy. Nope. It's for the people by the people. And through the democratic process of voting is how the Sultan will become elected, and he has a term limit. 7 years, 3 times, with a maximum of 21 years. If he's reelected after the end of each term, which is 7 terms at a time. So
point of clarity.
Yeah.
My unsettlement was no, I'm not unsettled about the monarchy. That doesn't bother me. Again, as long as it's for the people, by the people. That doesn't bother me.
But if it's a monarchy, then it wouldn't be for the people by the people. That would for the people by the people would be a republic. Monarchy is for the family. And a monarchy is like your royalty, and it gets passed down through the generations. The head.
Well, it didn't start out that way. It started out. It started out. The mothers picked. If we go back to when the mothers picked the king or the queen or the monarchy or the sultan, it was for the people by the people, and then it just got egotistical and went into the family thing. So I was thinking in terms of if it's like that, if it's picked by the people, I don't have a problem with that. What I found unsettling, because I did not see this. What you just pointed out, the independence of His Majesty the Sultan, and that we were looking at the chessboard and thinking a few moves ahead. This is us thinking a few moves ahead. What I found unsettling, I thought that it was the wizard saying, "You got the shoes, now come back tomorrow. I'll come back tomorrow and I'll give you something else." That's what I thought. That's what I found unsettling. You just made me feel better about that. I yield.
Islam. Yeah, no, it's not nothing like that. It was to get the Moors to understand unity once again. And it worked, obviously, because we all came in unity.
Yeah.
But the ultimate chess move always has been to bring the empire and the Sultan back onto the chessboard. That's the checkmate move. When we go to the ICJ, we're not going to the ICJ as the WRC. We're going to the ICJ as the Empire of Morocco, the proper party name, along with the Sultan. Checkmate. Any other?
I yield.
We ain't playing games with these people. We ain't playing games with this process. We're dead ass serious about this. That we're marching at the same beat. Locking arms. We're not going to lose. And the more of you that come online and jump on the bandwagon, per se, the more of you equals more power. You're just mounting on the power. Each one of your states represents a jewel that goes on the infinity gauntlet. The empire is the infinity gauntlet, and the Sultan is Thanos. And with all these states coming online, snap of a finger, it's all over with. Because all we're doing is taking the United States on a time travel. We're taking them back to 1906. when the Sultan summoned them to enact the Act of Algeciras, which he didn't even sign. You don't believe me? I'll show you. Do you see the signature from Morocco? Morocco is void of a signature. You don't see no signature from Morocco. But you see one for Netherlands, Testa, right? Let's go up. Germany, Joseph Radowitz, Austria-Hungary, Belgium, Spain, United States of America, Henry White and Samuel Goumeret, whatever. France, Great Britain, Italy, Morocco. There's none.
So
Netherlands.
how are all parties known?
Hmm?
So how are all parties known without that signature? Where's the signatory power if it's not signed?
The signature, good question. Okay, so this is the additional protocols. Let me go up, answer your question. Additional protocol, where is it? I think it's here. No, it's up here. I think. Give me a second.
Take your time, take your time.
Done at Algeciras this 7th day of April, 1906, in a single copy which shall remain deposited in the archives of the government of His Catholic Majesty, and of which certified copies shall be transmitted through the diplomatic channels of the signatory powers. That's not it. Okay, so that's the first set of signatures. Then you got the additional protocols. On the point of signing the General Act of the Conference of Algeciras, the delegates of Germany, Austria, Hungary, Belgium, Spain, United States of America, France, Great Britain, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, Russia, and Sweden. Taking into account the declaration of the delegates of Morocco that they were not, for the present, in position to affix their signature thereto, they being unable, owing to the distance, to receive an early reply from His Sharif and Majesty concerning the points in regard to which they deemed it their duty to refer to him, reciprocally engaged by virtue of their respective full powers to unite their efforts towards the ratification of the said General Act in its entirety by His Sharifian Majesty, and towards its simultaneous enforcement of the reforms therein provided, which are interdependent. They therefore agreed to charge His Excellency, Mr. Malmoussi, Minister of Italy, to Morocco, right? Because, you know, remember you had the Italian legation at the diplomatic body, right, in Tangiers, right? So he's the representative there, okay? And Dean of the Diplomatic Corps at Tangier to take the necessary steps to that end by calling the attention of His Majesty the Sultan to the great advantages that his empire would derive from the stipulations adopted at the conference by the unanimous action of the signatory powers. It was a unanimous action, and it would be of great advantage to the Sultan. The Europeans agreed to this. The Egyptian Majesty to the General Act of the Conference of Algeciras shall be communicated through the government of His Catholic Majesty to the governments of the signatory powers. This adhesion shall have the same force as if the delegates of Morocco had affixed their signature to the General Act, and will take the place of ratification by His Sharifian Majesty. You see?
I say. Answer my question.
In witness whereof the delegates of Germany, so on and so forth, right, have signed the present additional protocol and affixed their seals thereto. And then you come back again, the next set of signatures after that little fiasco, and Morocco still didn't sign. And it's in full force and effect. So what you're seeing here is that the Sultan is the dominant authority in Morocco. That's first of all, that shows you that. And the Pope works on behalf of the Sultan as the representative for all the signatory powers, which are the European powers. So that means that when we come into power, we would more than likely be interfacing with the Pope so that he can hold his minions accountable for any atrocities or any trespass, the supervening of the impossibility of performance of our Moroccan states, and more so the empire. Any other questions?
I see.
Islam.
Islam, Hakeem.
So this isn't really a question, just a quick statement. On our journey to economic liberty without any inequality, it's important to keep in mind current economic related struggles of our people, especially our people coming in as nationals, and being able on the way to that destination to be able to address any concerns they may have or assist in any way possible. One way of doing so is for each state to essentially focus on building their, how would you say, essentially gaining economic power, right? That includes starting businesses, so on and so forth, right? To support each other on our way to that destination, right? But yeah, I just wanted to add that real quick.
And let me continue with that. It sounds good. I want you to be mindful of this. I want you to be mindful of this. That sounds good. However, there is a sense of sort of a distraction there by focusing on the economic aspect of the government, and I'll say why. The administrative reforms involved in the due process of decolonization is overwhelming. And the problem right now currently is that we don't have enough people. So in order to, it would be very difficult to take our eyes off the ball of putting together the administrative reforms, right? The friendly applications to settle this dispute with the United States, and also at the same time focus on building a business or the economic structure of the government. Unfortunately, this is where patience comes in. Now, it'd be different if we had 1,000 Moors. Then we could put together a committee of Moors that can focus on building an economic base. However, that would still sort of be counterproductive, and here's the reason why. As you continue to say, as we climb the ladder to economic liberty without any inequality, well, economic liberty without any inequality is around the corner. We're not looking at more than a year, 2 years at the max. And what does economic liberty without any inequality looks like? Well, this is when the colonists start paying their taxes. That revenue, just that revenue alone, would fuel the economic base of each one of our Moroccan states. So essentially, that's the focus. To build economic liberty, to reach economic liberty without any inequality, so that now we can start funding the economic base of our states. If we were to come up off of the administrative reforms to focus on building the economic base from scratch, really, right? That would hinder us as we go through the varying stages of decolonization. Remembering that taking over means an immediate payday. It's just that we have to pay it forward as we go through the process. Look at it like this. Allodium Morris Palladium, Ante, Georgia, AMPAG. We are a hedge funds company. You can see us as that. It's a de jure government, but it has the elements of a hedge funds company. Why do I say that? Because AMPAG has to manage a corporation known as the state of Georgia and all of its subsidiary LLCs, LLPs, INCs, et cetera, et cetera. All the municipalities, all those corporations fall under the United States. I'm sorry, the state of Georgia as a corporation. And the state of Georgia, therefore, must register with AMPAG to do business in our jurisdiction. And from that comes the taxes and revenues. So, for example, here's the lowest hanging fruit, and I shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna throw it out there anyway. We don't talk about money, but I'm gonna throw it out there anyway since we're talking money. Here's the lowest of the lowest hanging fruit. I believe last year, the state of Georgia's revenue, total revenue amounted up to $56 billion or something like that, something crazy like that. In the meantime, in between time, as we go through the process of changing everything over, Georgia got to pay us 10% of those taxes. That's 56 million. In the meantime, in between time, because then when we turn everything over, we collect the damn taxes. So for now, they'll be collecting the taxes still, but they got to give us 10%. Until we switch everything over, then we are the ones that collect the taxes. And add on new revenues. Traffic court comes into the revenues from traffic court comes into the treasury. And we disperse it as we see fit.
Wow.
So suddenly, traffic court went from being a liability for the people under our subjugated status to now an asset to the state government that has reclaimed the trust territory. You see the difference between the two? One is Neo in the cubicle, and the other is Neo the one.
Point of privilege.
Islam.
So out of 1 billion, 10% would be 1 million for us. So if they're making 56 billion, it's a lot of money they owe the state.
You're right.
Point of privilege. It's very astute. It's very astute answer you gave to the brother, because it is a problem with a lot of Moors who are interested in making the move and busting this move to statehood, but the gravitational pull of the economy, they can't rise above it, and then those of us, who've been preparing for something like this, we find ourselves in the position, whichever kind of way we are in a position ready to make the shift, and so we know that the economic shift comes in the litigation of justice. That is where the focus should be, as you eloquently stated. And but I understand the brother's concern, because a lot of folks, they see it but can't be it, and they can be it if they trust it, if they had the trust. to go to move in that direction and know that everything would fall into place. But spiritually or evolutionary, they not there yet. So I offer that and I yield.
Islam, brother, gratitude for that point of interest. And yes, I do recognize the necessity in what the brother was saying, right? Because a lot of us are still working a full job, right? And that's one of what you might call a black eye on the movement. That's what the Moorish Americans like to use against us. That's only because they don't understand the due process of what we're doing. They don't know about the triple principles. They're talking ignorantly, right? And the due process of decolonization is outlined in the preamble: sovereignty and independence, integrity of domains, economic liberty without any inequality. And like I said, that's the lowest hanging fruit. That's just one revenue stream.
That's an economic program in and of itself. Yeah.
Habu properties. Okay, so let me see. Control that.
Old churches.
All the Catholic churches. But let's just say, how you spell Habu?
Old City Hall buildings, correct?
Yep. City Hall buildings, Habu. Let me see. How you spell Habu property? I wanted to go with a U. Let me see. Habus. How you spell that?
So is it that they don't have a deed to the building?
That's exactly right. They don't have a deed to the building.
HABOU. Correct.
That's what I thought. Yeah, HABOU, but it's not pulling it up on my control find. Or maybe I spelled it. I think I did HOBOU. Let's see. Because what I'm trying to pull is the percentage. Okay, there it is. His Sharif and Majesty having decided in 1901 that the Moorish officials who collect the agricultural taxes, see, we're supposed to collect the agricultural taxes, should no longer receive either the Sokra or the Muna. The conference is of the opinion that this rule should be made general so as far as it's possible. Then it goes on to say, Article 63, the Sharifian delegates have stated that Habu property or certain state property, notably buildings of the Moxen, occupied at a rental of 6%, are held by a person subject to foreign jurisdiction without regular title or by virtue of contract subject to revision. So they got to pay 6% for leasing the Habu properties, i.e. the Capitol building, right? Museums, all these limestone buildings, courthouses, etc.
Museums, right.
Right. Catholic churches, all these Moorish buildings. So let's say Capitol buildings. If you're talking about a Capitol building, there's 50 Capitol buildings in the American jurisdiction. Would you agree with that?
Yep.
One for each state, right? And let's say that each one is worth at least $1 million, which it's not going to be no less than that. And more than likely, they're actually more like 10 million plus in value. So let's go with the lowest number, 1 million, right? So if we did the math, 50 million, 1 million times 50 is 50 million times 6%. That's equal to $3 million. That's low, low, low. They got to pay us $3 million for occupying these buildings. So do we want to, now we have to come to the determination as to whether we want to either A, right, relinquish those properties and we move in them or move back in them, or B, we let them keep it so we can generate that revenue and go build something else prettier, better, and newer. What do y'all think? I'm gonna leave that to the floor. This is a question for the floor. What's the better option, A or B?
Something better and newer. Things made of hemp, going back to the architecture we made in Andalusia. Buildings where you didn't need air conditioner. You built it in such a way that in the summertime you stayed cool. The air would come in and you stayed cool. In the winter, you stayed warm. We have to go back to our science of architecture. So yeah, and then using natural materials and not the and not this poison treated stuff that they use, but going back to the earth, using hemp, to build.
I hear you. Well, but here's the thing, brother.
Yes.
Those Habu properties are ancient buildings that was built by our people using the earth. It's limestone.
Okay.
And the engineering of those buildings, and it was and is built, as you say, with the as you referred to in Andalusia. The problem is that they didn't know how to operate it. So they corrupted the buildings by adding on things like AC units and stuff.
Islam, and a lot of the buildings they covered up. So underground, we have a lot of those buildings still. A lot of the buildings that we see is really the top of buildings. That's you just seeing the top of a building that's in the rest of the building is in the ground.
Yeah.
We have all types of Habu property buildings here, such as the buildings, those structures that appears to be mountains in the Midwest, like New Mexico and stuff like that. Those mountains that the coyote used to chase the road runner on and fall from, and all that. Those aren't mountains. Those are buildings. You can tell. You can see the carving. It's not, nature is not perfect, right? It's perfectly carved certain areas. It's obvious that it's a building when you really look at it. The golf courses, you see those mounds, that's covering up our mounds. So we've got mounds, we've got all types of buildings. Talking about the ones that we can see that they're actually operating out of. That's and all I'm saying is that my point is that that's the
low hanging fruit.
The lowest of the lowest of the lowest. And the numbers is like not even, you know what I mean? Like it's the lowest. Like so when Noble Jew Ali said, "Children, you are plainly rich, trust and believe," Noble Jew Ali was reading the Act of Al Jazeera. It gave us back everything, Moors. I just read to you that the Moorish authorities were supposed to collect the agricultural taxes, for crying out loud. Why aren't we collecting the agricultural taxes? Because we've been acquiescing, thinking that we Moorish Americans, African Americans, Negroes, Blacks, Coloreds, Hebrew Israelites, Cherokees, and anything else except Moroccan. Well, them days are over. But we're going to keep beating it in their heads. You're not Moorish Americans. Period. And the Grand Sheiks got some explaining to do. Not all of them. But if the fez fits, wear it, and wear it well. You always got to look at leadership. We're not looking at the members. We're looking at the leaders. And those who are guilty. Not those who are not guilty. But again, if the fez fits, wear it. Right? Same thing with any other spiritual Negro leader that led us into slavery. They shall pay for their genocide they committed against their own people under denationalization. Islam. I yield the floor for one last question, comment, or statement or whatever before we adjourn the meeting.
I'm going to excuse myself, and I thank you, and I enjoyed you and everybody and all the questions and answers this evening. And I'll be back
Islam,
next
brother.
week. Islam.
Islam, brother. I appreciate you. I appreciate the floor. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance. I'll say it again, please try to share and like the video because it's going to be a video, right? Share all the videos, the AMPAG study sessions video. We want to get the information out and friend us on Facebook and all that, right? We're all in this together, Morris. Without you, there's no, without me, there's no you. With all that said, peace, love, and light, and may upon you all.
Islam.
Islam. Islam.
Peace, peace.
Islam, peace and love.
Peace and love. Thank you all.
Islam.
Peace and love.
Islam nobilities.
Islam nobilities.